In the modern landscape of American immigration enforcement, private corporations have carved out a troubling niche, profiting from the detention and deportation of vulnerable individuals. Companies providing security, food, medical services, and even furniture for immigration and customs enforcement, ICE facilities, have turned human suffering into a billion-dollar industry. At the heart of this system are figures like Erik Prince, the former CEO of Blackwater, whose ties to the Christian right and calls for private citizen armies raise serious ethical concerns. From the GEO Group's $1 billion contract to Wayfair's betting deals for ICE detention centers, this web of corporate greed connects directly to a broader legacy of injustice. Most notably, the private prison industry's role in disproportionately imprisoning Black Americans during the war on drugs and the era of the crime bill. As Muslims, we must reflect on these developments through the lens of justice and accountability, principles deeply rooted in Islam.
After his pilgrimage, Malcolm spent 3 weeks in Africa.
Perhaps if the white man in America would study Islam, perhaps they could do the same thing for him.
This is why I say it's the ballot or the bullet. It's liberty or it's death. We don't care anything about your atomic bomb. It's useless. Can I prove it? Yes. Take all the action that's going on this earth right now that he's involved in. Tell me where he's winning. Nowhere. The day that he can win on the ground is past. They didn't have anything but a rifle. But they put some guerrilla action on.
Erik Prince, Blackwater, and the Christian right. Erik Prince, a name synonymous with military privatization, founded Blackwater, a security firm infamous for its role in the 2007 Nisour Square massacre in Iraq, where 17 civilians were killed. Despite this dark history, Prince has re-emerged as a key player in America's immigration enforcement debate. In early 2025, he proposed a $25 billion plan to the Trump administration to privatize mass deportations, including processing camps, a fleet of 100 planes, and a small army of private citizens empowered to arrest immigrants. This dystopian vision echoes his past ventures, blending profit motives with a militarized approach to human lives. Prince's connections amplify the stakes. He is the brother of Betsy DeVos, Trump's former education secretary, whose family has deep roots in the Christian right. The DeVos-Prince clan, hailing from Michigan, has long wielded influence through wealth and ideology, championing conservative causes that often align with exclusionary policies. Prince himself has ties to evangelical circles, framing his ventures as moral crusades. His call for private citizen armies to hunt down immigrants evokes a vigilante ethos, raising questions about accountability and the sanctity of human dignity, values Islam holds dear, as the Quran reminds us, and do not kill the soul which Allah has forbidden except by right, 1733. The GEO Group's billion-dollar Bonanza. While Prince pushes for privatized deportation, corporations like the GEO Group are already cashing in. A titan in the private prison industry, GEO secured contracts worth over $1 billion with ICE to manage detention centers. These facilities, housing tens of thousands of immigrants, many without criminal records, generate immense profits by charging taxpayers per detainee, regardless of whether beds are filled. In 2023, GEO's revenue hit $2.41 billion, with ICE accounting for 43% of its income. This business model thrives on the expansion of detention, incentivizing policies that lock up more people for longer periods. From an Islamic perspective, this profiteering of human suffering is indefensible. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "The best of people are those who bring the most benefit to others." Yet too many firms benefit by perpetuating misery, not alleviating it. Reports of substandard conditions, overcrowding, inadequate medical care, and even abuse further underscore the moral bankruptcy of this system. Wayfair and the everyday profiteers. Beyond security giants, everyday corporations are complicit. Wayfair, a popular home goods retailer, faced backlash in 2019 when employees discovered it had a contract to supply bedding for ICE detention centers. Despite a walkout by workers demanding the deal be canceled, Wayfair persisted, donating to the Red Cross instead of cutting ties, a move critics saw as a hollow gesture. This reveals how deeply entrenched the detention industry is in American commerce, where even furniture companies profit from the caging of families and children. For Muslims, this normalization of suffering clashes with our duty to uphold justice. The Quran instructs, "O you who have believed, be persistently standing firm in justice, witnesses for Allah, even if it be against yourselves or parents and relatives." 4, verse 135. Systems that profit from oppression, even indirectly, demand scrutiny and action. A legacy of injustice from the war on drugs to ICE. The private prison industry's role in ICE detention is not a new phenomenon, but an extension of a decades-long legacy targeting Black Americans. In the 1980s and 90s, the war on drugs and the 1994 crime bill, championed by then-Senator Joe Biden, ushered in an era of mass incarceration. Private prisons like GEO and CoreCivic flourished, housing a disproportionate number of Black men for nonviolent drug offenses. Harsh sentencing laws and aggressive policing turned communities into pipelines for profit, with Black individuals, who make up 13% of the U.S. population, comprising nearly 40% of the prison population by the 2000s. This systemic targeting reflects a broader pattern of racial injustice that now informs immigration enforcement. ICE's reliance on private facilities, over 70% of detainees are held in for-profit centers, mirrors the war on drugs playbook: criminalize, detain, and profit. Black immigrants, too, face heightened scrutiny, often caught in the overlap of racial profiling and immigration raids. As Muslims, many of whom are immigrants or people of color, we should see the continuity of this oppression. The Prophet, peace be upon him, taught, "Whoever among you sees an evil, let him change it with his hand. If he cannot, then with his tongue. If he cannot, then with his heart. And that is the weakest of faith." Tying it together, a call for reflection and action. The threads of private corporations securing ICE facilities, Erik Prince's militarized ambitions, GEO's billion-dollar contracts, and Wayfair's betting deals weave a tapestry of exploitation. At its core, this is about commodifying human beings, whether Black men ensnared by the war on drugs or immigrants fleeing hardship. The Christian right's ideological backing, exemplified by Prince, adds a layer of zealotry to an already ruthless enterprise. As Muslims, we are called to reject such systems. Islam demands we protect the vulnerable, not profit from their plight. The Quran warns, "Woe to those who give less than due, who when they take a measure from people, take it in full, but when they give by measure or weight to them, give less than due." This applies not just to trade, but to justice itself. The private prison industry, now entwined with ICE, has given less than due to Black and immigrant communities for decades, all while reaping billions. We must speak out, advocate for alternatives to mass detention, and support policies that dismantle this profiteering. From the war on drugs to today's deportation centers, the legacy of injustice persists, but so does our duty to resist it. Let us stand firm as Allah commands, and let not the hatred of a people prevent you from being just. Be just, that is nearer to righteousness. 5:8.